Good morning, everybody, and it's Kevin, and I'm at the cottage along with
Ralph. That's me.
That's him.
I shoot, he scores the food.
So it is a beautiful late October morning.
What are we making today here
at the lake? And it's apple season in Michigan, and apples are a big deal here in Michigan. We grow a lot of apples. So what's good about that is it means that we make a lot of things with apples. So we were at the market yesterday. We've been eating apples, and I've got a variety of apples that we're going to use. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Although this says fresh peaches, but it's actually filled with apples, and so we got, this is half of a peck.
We've got peaches, pineapples, and apples,
yes,
and little green apples on the stereo with O.C. Smith.
Oh, I love it. And I've got a variety of apples here. I've got some Ida Reds, some Macintosh, and some Jonna Golds. And we're going to use the combination of those three apples to make our apple pie. And every pie we start with the crust. So here we go. I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour in the bowl, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt to that, and then I'm going to just whisk it together. I do this instead of sifting.
Okay, so right now all you're doing is adding the salt to the flour,
yep,
and beating it a little,
and just getting the salt mixed in, and also aerating the flour a little bit with the whisk. Okay, so there we go.
Simple first step.
Now, I've got 2/3 of a cup of Crisco here. And I know we've done crust before. It's not the first time. We've talked about crust, and what people like to use in their crust varies. Some people use lard. Some people use butter. Some people use a combination of butter and Crisco. So I'm just cutting it in. You can see we're getting to have some particles here where the shortening and the flour are sticking together. So now what we're going to do is add cold water to our blend of flour, salt, and shortening. You can see here we are. This is ice water. You can see I got a couple ice cubes in here. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons at a time. Generally it takes anywhere between, for me, 5 to 7 tablespoons. A lot depends on kind of what we've got going on humidity wise. I think I'm going to do one more, so that would be 6.
It's actually a little drier up here than usual too. I mean, there have been times when it's been, very
it's hot and humid, or it's cool and dry. And right now we're in a cool and dry phase. But
so you can deal with 6. Was it teaspoons or tablespoons?
Tablespoons.
Tablespoons.
So we're going to get this out of the bowl here, kind of together. Get all that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to stick the dough here in the fridge for about a half an hour. I'm going to cut it in 2 pieces.
So you form it into like 2
little discs.
Or patties.
Patty cake.
Patty cake.
And generally, I have one a little bigger than the other.
Oh, right. For one to be the top and one to be the
bottom. Yeah.
The bottom crust and top crust. Okay.
Then we're going to take our plastic wrap, and we will wrap them each up separately and just let them chill out in the fridge, like I said, half hour or so. I mean, you could even make the dough the day before if you wanted to. Keep it in the refrigerator until it's ready to use. And then, while the dough is sort of chilling out in the fridge,
chillaxing,
we are going to start getting our filling ready. So we're going to get things cleaned up, and then we'll be back and start putting our apple pie filling all together. We're making apple pie this autumn morning here at the cottage. Okay, we are peeling our apples. So I've got, looks like 6 apples here.
5 already peeled, 1 final one to peel.
Yeah, and I like to use a potato peeler or a vegetable peeler here to do my apples. You know, they have all kinds of little gizmos for peeling apples and coring them and all that kind of stuff. But I've always sort of just done it this way. And then I just sort of peel over a newspaper or an old shopping bag, and then...
No fuss, no muss.
That's it. We like it easy breezy.
And you said you have a combination of different apples.
3 different apples, yep. We've got Ida Reds, we've got Macintosh, and we've got Jonna Golds. Okay, so we've got our apples peeled. We're going to put this away. And now we're going to cut them. A couple schools of thought on the apple cutting. What I really like to do is I like to have a thinner slice with my apple. So what I do is I sort of cut around the core like this.
So you end up with like maybe 4 big chunks.
Exactly. And then what I do is I slice it like that. You know, you could use one of those apple core things that you just press down over the apple, and that would cut the apple, but the pieces
might still be too thick.
I think so. I like a thinner slice in the apple pie, so this is how I do it. But you know, it's like everything else. Everybody kind of has their own preference, or they like to do things a certain way, and you certainly can do that.
This is basically a recipe that you kind of inherited from your mom or kind of learned from her, right?
Yeah. My mom made apple pie a lot because actually that's my dad's favorite pie is apple pie. And so she made it quite often for him, especially this time of year when, like I said, Michigan is a big apple producing state, and we would go by the apple orchards or the farm markets, and it would be apples galore. So
my mom used to make apple pies in a similar way as Kevin's. He and I have talked about this before. The way we like our apple pies is the way our moms made it, which is to say not overly spiced, where you can really get that apple flavor and the good crust kind of flavor, and on the sweet side, but not overly sweet, and just basic simple flavorings, cinnamon and I'm not sure what else, but I know that she didn't go crazy with a lot of those spices that I think sometimes overpower the apple pie.
Yeah, actually cinnamon is the only really spice that goes into this pie. Alright, so here's our apples all sliced up, and we're going to add the rest of our filling ingredients. I've got about 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. I'm going to put that in there.
Is that less for flavoring but more for coloring?
Well, it does prevent the apples from getting too brown, but it also does add a little bit of
kicks it up a touch.
Just a little tartness to it. Okay, so we've got our lemon juice in. Then I've got a 1/2 cup of white sugar and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I think the brown sugar adds a really nice
kind of more richness.
Yeah, flavor to it, almost a little caramely thing.
Is this what your mom did?
And then we have a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour that's going to help thicken it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Then I'm going to put in just a pinch of salt. Again, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a pinch. That'll brighten up the flavor a little bit. Then we'll put in our cinnamon. I put in about 1.5 teaspoons or so of ground cinnamon. We get it all in there. Then we just kind of bring it all together.
So when it's baking, the flour and the sugar and the cinnamon and the lemon kind of create almost like a syrup, a sweetness.
Yeah, the flour helps thicken the juice, because there's a lot of water in apples.
You don't want it to be all runny.
Exactly. And it's apples is like most fruits. There's a lot of water in it. So as the apples cook down, whoop, apple overboard here. So
it's important to blend and mix all the stuff onto the apple slices is what you're doing now. This is an important step. You don't want some that are just...
Here's our filling. So it's pretty much done.
You want it to be consistent.
Okay. So we're going to put the filling aside. It's ready to go. Now I'll do a quick little cleanup. We'll come back and start rolling out our pie crust and get our apple pie in the oven. Be right back. All right, so I've got the bottom crust rolled off and into our pie plate. We're going to take our apple filling here. Can you get at it, Ralph?
Yep.
So this is our apple, our flour, our white and brown sugar, and our cinnamon spice.
A little lemon juice.
A little lemon juice, a pinch of salt.
Wow, it looks like it's going to be a high pie.
Be a high pie. It will cook down a little bit.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's okay.
Like you said, so much water in the fruit, in the apples.
I think of all pies, apple pies tend to be a little thicker, a little higher. I think people like a high apple pie. Okay, so there's our filling. Before we put the top crust on, though, something else that really gives a nice finish to the pie. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter here that I just kind of cubed up. And we're going to just tuck that in. And the butter, of course, will melt in the baking process with the brown sugar and everything else. And it'll just really...
kick up the flavor.
Yeah. It makes for a nice
filling.
Kind of a filling, yeah. So, okay, now here's our other part of our crust that we had in the refrigerator.
That's the other patty cake.
This will serve as our top crust.
The upper crust, as they
say. The upper crust. Just kind of make sure I got enough flour on the board. Okay. And we will roll our dough out here for our top crust. I use a little rolling pin cozy stocking, I guess.
What's the purpose of that?
Well, it just, to me, it helps me keep the dough from sticking, but people have all kinds of tricks. And then I use a spatula to do like this, and then to do like this.
Oh, you're getting good at these crusts, aren't you?
Well, it's like everything else.
The more you do it,
practice makes perfect. Now we have a little bit. I'm just gonna kind of pull some of this excess
by hand.
Yeah, off the edge. Some people cut it with the scissors, and
my mom used to use a knife. I think.
Did she?
I think I seem to remember her going around with a knife.
Because what I like to do is I sort of like to take the bottom crust, which is hanging over as well, and pinch it together with the top crust.
Give it a little crimp.
Yep. And that kind of helps, I think, seal the pie in. Fruit pies are notorious for
drippage.
Yeah, it's for boiling over and things like that. Again, why? Because there's a lot of water.
Crimp your pie, crimp daddy.
So now I will attempt to put a little bit of a scalloped edge there with my index finger and thumb. Pies aren't the most beautiful that I make, but
yeah, but when they're done like
when
this,
you're eating them,
they're homemade when you have that kind of imperfect, funky but delicious crust.
So we are going to vent the pie a little bit. So I'm going to put kind of, this is the pattern I like to use. Then we put a little hole out of the center. Now, this is totally optional, and this is just something that I like to do. But I like to just sprinkle a very light dusting of sugar on that top crust. Okay, there we go. I'm going to put the pie on top of this. It's actually a pizza pan. I'm going to put a little piece of foil. Again, I anticipate what happens in the baking process, so this is just, I love my old oven, but it's not a self-cleaning oven, so the more mess that is made on the inside, the more I have to clean up. So we do it like that. The oven is preheated, 400 degrees. It's going to go in for 45 to 50 minutes. In she goes. So, timer just went off, 45 minutes, and we are gonna get our apple pie. Oh, there she is.
Wow, that looks and smells
that look
good.
Pretty. So, there's our apple pie, and we're gonna let that cool. As you may know, pies take a long time to cool, so yeah, we'll leave it sit out for a few hours. This is our dessert today, so we'll let the apple pie cool. We'll come on back and get a shot when we cut into this baby. But that's our autumn apple pie at the cottage.
Beautiful for an autumn afternoon.
Yeah. Well, here we are. Pie has cooled for the whole afternoon, and
the moment of truth has arrived.
So now it's time to see what we got. So we're going to cut into our autumn apple pie here. And again, we used a variety of apples.
Look at that.
And the first piece is always the hardest, isn't it? But
I don't mind a sloppy piece. Looks good to me.
There's our pie. Autumn apple pie at the cottage. Hope your autumn is going as well as ours. Thanks for being a part of it.
Have a good one. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Bye now.
Bye.